welcome back to another exciting episode of Jazz Biz Buzz. As promised, we are in Lahore and we are exploring a lot of more industries here. Today, we are going to be engaging in conversation with Dr. Shazia from the education industry. She is heading the SOAR STEM Schools here, and we are going to talk about how they are different from normal school education. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shazia. Kya haal hai aapke?
Walaikum salam. I'm perfectly fine. Thank you and Dilip for inviting me over to this program.
Pleasure,
and giving me an opportunity to say something about the schools.
Absolutely a pleasure of ours, Ji. So, Dr. Shazia, you are a doctor and you have started these, education institutes. So I'm really, and I'm sure our audience is really intrigued about finding out how that shift happened. Why did you become so passionate about teaching?
Andalib, it goes back to my medical years. When I was young, it was considered the norm to become a doctor or an engineer. And unfortunately, I got into medical school and I had to graduate. But when I got married, I decided that I wanted to teach, and I'd always been very passionate about teaching. And suddenly I walked into a private school and I got a job as a grade 3 science teacher. And my family was aghast, but my husband was very, very supportive. He was actually the force behind me to follow my dreams. And that's how I started, and this is where I am.
Absolutely. So, tell me a little bit about STEM schools. There are so many different curriculums going on. Every school comes in and talks about a different kind of curriculum. But I think that science, technology, mathematics, and the kind of studies that you're introducing, they're really interesting. So tell us a little about it and how it's different and how it's better for the children.
Andalib, over the years, I've explored different curricula, starting from our national curriculum to the Cambridge curriculum to the IB curriculum. And all of them have their pluses and all of them have their negatives. One of the things that I realized about education in general in Pakistan was that we were preparing our future generation, our workforce, to not be able to get any opportunity in the market because we were preparing them to do a very obsolete undergrad, BA, BSc, and it was in such obsolete subjects that it had no relevance to the market. And after working for years, we decided with my partner, Mr. Usman Rashid, he's come in from the US with this mission that we need to impact education. So we actually sat down and thought about how could we create a generation that would be able to have a positive impact, that would be able to find an opportunity for work in this industry. And that is where we decided that we would start STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's not something which is a different way of teaching. It is just a philosophy. The philosophy is that whatever you're teaching in the classroom should be relevant to what is happening in the world. For example, if you're teaching a grade 4 child about friction, then they need to build a prototype of a car which they can test on sand, on ice, on roads, on the mountains, hypothetically. And that is where they understand that what friction means beyond what they have learned from the textbooks.
The application of
the application in real life. And that is what is missing in our education. And when our kids go from their undergrad to a master's program outside Pakistan, they do not have any industry knowledge. They only have that bookish knowledge, which is not applicable anywhere. So in actuality, we are creating a workforce which won't be able to find any work outside their schools or colleges, because yes, and the relevance of what is in the textbooks to what is actually happening in the world outside. So that was one of the factors that was missing in education. And I feel that if Pakistan needs to come up in the top countries or transition from a developing into a developed country, it needs to look at its education to improve it so that it is more relevant to what is happening outside. Absolutely. At the moment, our education is obsolete.
Absolutely. So COVID happened and the mode of education completely changed. I, for one, feel like the kind of education that you get within a classroom is not the same when you are sitting in front front of a screen in your home. So what were the challenges? How did you overcome them?
When COVID happened, actually, Andalib, nobody was prepared for it. Nobody was prepared for an online system of education. But now I feel that it has become the need of the hour, that we have to have a hybrid system where children are used to an online and a face-to-face education. It has its downsides in the primary school because I feel that children, if they are within a classroom, physical classroom environment, there's more collaboration, there is more interaction, they learn better, they develop better skills. But that is not because it's purely online, it is because we are not used to teaching online. So at that time, everybody scrambled to go online to survive. It was more of a survival method. And over these last 2 years, we have actually become better at navigating online teaching and learning because the way assessments are held is completely different online. The way a teacher collaborates is different. The way the teaching is imparted, it has to be more innovative, because in a classroom, the teacher can still be traditional and get away with it. But in an online class, you lose attention very quickly. So at SOAR STEM Schools, what we did was that we went immediately onto online, where we had students come in a classroom environment as a whole cohort, and then we had breakout sessions with them after the school ended, 1 hour each, where each child got access to the teacher one-on-one, where they could discuss their problems, where they could, if they hadn't understood anything, they had access to a separate time apart from the teacher. And that really worked very well with us. One thing that I keep telling everybody, digitalization is not about having a laptop or a tablet. It's about instructional technology. It is about instructional education, because instructional education actually caters to a more diverse student need, because you can collaborate better, you can give them different tools, they have more access to information. You can, if you give them homework, maybe you can have separate sessions with them later on while they're doing their homework within a window, so that you can support them during the work that they're doing. So I believe that if our children are to succeed, and as I mentioned earlier, that move from a developing country into a developed country, we need to train our children how to be very, very savvy with technology. And that is savvy in a safe way. At the moment, our children are not they do not understand the difference between safe technology and unsafe technology.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Shazia, I feel like when you say that, the teachers are actually having classrooms and cohorts, and then they are also assisting children afterwards for an hour or so, or while they're doing their homeworks, I feel like the job of teachers have become a little too difficult, no?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And while we are on the subject, I feel also that Pakistan probably does not respect this profession as much as it should be. Why do you think, where are we lagging? Is this because we are not getting quality teachers? Is this because we are just not getting the right kind of training for teachers?
And both of these are directly related. You're absolutely right that teachers are facing burnout because of this model, because they cannot cut off from the child at any time. The problem is that in schools, unlike in universities and colleges, where the government mandates that they need to have a specific qualification before they can enter into a classroom, in a primary school, there is no specification. So any woman who, or a young girl who has completed her master's in any subject can just walk into a school and start teaching. So I think as industry leaders, we need to invest more in teacher training. At SOAR STEM Schools, what we've done is that we have a special department, and it's called the SOAR Teacher Training Institute. it is where every teacher who comes into the school has to go through an onboarding and level 1 training for 6 months before she's even allowed to go into the classroom. What we encourage in them is that they should record a video of themselves teaching and then look at it and reflect how they are as a teacher. And they are being monitored at every moment. But then, unfortunately, teacher training is something which is lacking in the private sector, at least. And we focus on that specifically in our schools because we feel that if a teacher is trained to deliver subject knowledge, Andalib, is not very relevant when it comes to teaching, because if a teacher is a PhD in English but is unable to transfer that knowledge, it is meaningless to the student. So our focus, and I feel personally that the focus of every school should be teacher training, teacher training, and teacher training.
All right, Dr. Shazia, मुझे थोड़ा सा बताएं कि कोविड के अंदर you had to go online, and then there's a concept of gamified learning as well that has been introduced in the market. Do you think gamified learning is something that children should do in their own time, or do you think that its incorporation in a classroom is now becoming very important?
Andalib, it is very important as a part of instructional teaching. It shouldn't be as a pastime to keep the children engaged, that busy ho jaye. Hamare, as mothers generally we tend to do is to give them some mobile app or some other gadget to keep them busy. If there is a purpose behind it, if there is, it is a part of your strategy to teach a certain topic, then I think it is a great tool to use for teaching and learning.
So, as my last question, this is one part that I really love to ask, and I feel like while there is government and regulatory policies and public policies and everything, the business community, the private business community comes together and builds an excellent ecosystem. Who do you think is your most important instructional technology partner?
Andalib, during COVID, we realized that one of the things that we really, really were very keen to have was a bandwidth. And because everything was online, and as you know, Pakistan, there's this problem of having ample bandwidth where everybody can connect at the same time. So we took on Jazz as partners, and we had a fantastic service from their end, to the extent that we conducted the biggest exam in Pakistan for 2 lakh students, and the bandwidth was provided by Jazz. And they did a great job, because it wouldn't have been possible without their expertise, because almost 10,000 to 15,000 students logging in at the same time on a bandwidth in places as far-flung as Sakkar and Mirpur and all. And they were there as our partners, providing the technology support that we required. And they were there in our schools, giving us the bandwidth that we required for thousands of students to log in at the same time, with live streaming and so much more.
So thank you so much, Dr. Shazia, for coming here today. I had a wonderful time talking to you, and I'm sure our viewers also enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andali, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk about my passion, my dream, SOAR STEM Schools. Thank you very much.
We will be back with another episode of Jazz Biz Buzz soon enough. Stay tuned.
Jazz Business, designed to help you grow.